We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. And we've got a fun fact for you on that title. Stay tuned for 1 second. You know me, the voice, Dr. LL, Laurel and Mears, here as your host every week. Just fascinating freaking guests from all over the world. And this is a company I'm sure most of you have heard of, Constant Contact. And we've got the director of small business success here, Dave Charest, in the house with us. And they just produced a really meaty, in fact, so meaty, small business success report that it took time to upload. Can you imagine? Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, you mentioned the fun fact. So we were talking a little bit before we got on the air that one of the second podcasts that I had started with my time at Constant Contact when I was in the content role when I started was named Small Biz Stories, and so very close, which I probably led us to why your small business stories at that point in terms of the naming, but a lot of fun there.
Oh yeah, and it is all about that. What's in a name? In its
Yeah.
earlier incarnation, my show was The Grit Files, and people liked it and following, but Small
Hmm.
Business Stories speaks to, well, exactly what it is. And people are like, yeah, I want to be on that show. I want to be in that show. I want to listen to that show. And it's just going and going, and it's so fun.
Yeah, it's small businesses. When we started, it always kind of came up with this idea that it's like you're going to hear from some of the bravest people you'll ever meet, right? These folks that really take a chance, go out on their own, and do something that realistically so many people uh, are afraid to do. More than 50% what fail in the first 5 years, and so it's not a given thing, but they do it anyway, and oftentimes there's nothing to fall back on. Which is
Yeah.
why they often get to the places that they get to. So it's always awesome to share those stories.
Exactly, right? It's that combination of tenacity and hubris. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it and you built the better mousetrap, or forget about it, get out of the game.
Or not know or not know the things you don't know, right? In order to move forward, because sometimes those things hold you back.
Oh, absolutely, right? If I knew now,
Yeah.
I'd never know.
Right. It's like,
Right? I
oh,
mean, it's
yeah.
just, wow, it's a lot. So you've been with Constant Contact now for over a decade, almost 14 years.
Yeah.
What have you seen as far as some of the big tectonic shifts in the space?
So there's a couple of things I'll talk about. I think in some ways, everything has changed and nothing has changed, right? And so what I mean by that is I think at the end of the day, like of course the technology has changed a lot. And I think there's never been a better time to have the resources and the tools to be able to help you succeed at starting a business, just in terms of like the technology available to you. But I think the other side of it is that when you think of just marketing, which is where our focus is all the time at Constant Contact, is really marketing. The channels have changed, the technology has changed, as I mentioned. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting your business seen, keeping your business top of mind, and connecting with people. And the through line through all of it is that people part and the way people connect with each other. And I think that's actually going to become even more and more important as we get into this like AI everything. People are going to look for those experiences where they connect with real people. They're like live events, I think, are going to become more important, and just those experiences in general. And so yeah, a lot of the things that you talk about that just make us human, I think still are key today. I think behavior changes a little bit now. I think we're really starting to see that just with people now growing up with the devices and those types of things. And so I think that changes things a bit. But the reality is, I think marketing is all about communicating something to the people that will find value in what you have to say, and keeping yourself top of mind with them. And I think that holds true. Just the channels and the technology is changing and more advanced, but it's adapting it, that same thing, to those channels.
Let me pull on that thread a little
Yeah,
more about the people connection.
sure.
So we're starting to see some trends here in 2026. Now, again, just even away from marketing, just about the
Hmm.
people connection. So you've got your prediction that people will be attending live events more often. Okay, that's one piece. We're seeing people embracing analog hobbies. We're
Mm,
seeing people increasingly taking longer and longer
yeah.
sabbaticals and breaks from social media. We're seeing people pay to go on cruises and excursions that are so freaking remote that they pay to make sure there's no Wi-Fi and no signal so they don't get tempted and they can heal. I
Yeah.
mean, it is because we want these communities and we want people. Constant contact was at the forefront of that, I think, trying to figure out how do you bridge people and get them to find out about who you are.
Yeah.
I spend my days anchored in my tagline, which is invisible brands don't make money.
Mm.
So, how do you get that visibility? Talk to us about what people are getting wrong in today's era about making that connection and outreach to people.
Yeah, I think there's this overwhelming sense of overwhelm,
Yes.
funnily enough, right? That comes into play with just because there's so many channels, there's so many things vying for our attention now, particularly because of all of the devices and the online things. And I think as a business owner, you get FOMO a lot of the times. Like you feel like you keep hearing of, oh, I got to be on this. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got it right. And so you're pulled in all of these directions. And I think we can likely agree, unless you're a marketing business, if you're a small business owner, you didn't get into the business because you wanted to do marketing, right? You recognize it as a necessary thing that you need to do to get the word out about your business. And so I think it's changing that in many ways. And I think the biggest thing is thinking that you need to do everything.
Mhm.
And I think really, oftentimes, I'll speak on stages and I'll mention like all of these channels exist to you. Find one you're comfortable on, because that's the big thing, is that like, oh, somebody said I needed to do this and somebody I said I needed to be on that. But if you don't want to be on that, you're going to go begrudgingly every time you had to do that thing. And so you're never going to be able to maintain it. And reality is, I mean, think about your show or anything that you do. It's all about consistency and showing up, right? And like if you're fighting showing up all the time, people aren't even going to appreciate what you're sharing on that channel, right? Because you don't. It's not. It's got a negative cloud over it, right? And so I think it's saying like, where do you feel comfortable? Where are your people, of course? Then marry those two, and then just pick one channel and sit there for a while and figure out how to make it work. And I think this is, what's nice about what we're seeing. And this is, I'm sure we'll dig into more about some of the things that we're seeing in the report, but social and email, those are the two biggest marketing channels that people are really leaning into. And it's nice to see those two working together, because you've got social for the reach and then the email for the connection, I'll say, but you control that channel too, right? So it's the reach and the connection that I think those two go hand in hand. And so if you can pick one channel and use that to get you the reach and then find your people and then bring them closer to you, so you can start to build those real relationships that are important for the business that you have, that's where I think, people just spread themselves too thin. So they're spinning their wheels, doing a lot of things and doing a lot of activity. And let's be fair, social media does a really good job of making it feel like you're being doing something when it's not actually putting any money in your bank account, right? And so I think that's the biggest mistake I see, is just trying to do too many things, because you're already wearing a million hats anyway. And then particularly when it comes to the marketing, you're just doing so much that nothing is gaining any traction for you. And so I think it's okay to say, okay, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to figure out how to make this thing work. And then you actually start to earn some revenue from something. And then that earns you the permission to like, all right, I'm going to add something else to the mix, right? And you actually get something going. And I think that's the big thing.
Okay, so a few pieces and stuff. I want to dig
Yeah.
in and unravel some of that. So one of the things, like earlier in your statement, you said you spoke like a marketing firm. You talked about, well, marketing is that necessary thing. You used the word thing that brands and businesses have to do. You
Mm,
didn't say evil. So those of us that are on the vendor side look at marketing, says the marketeer, as an evil that we
yeah.
have to do, especially because we feel we have to be everywhere. We've got to be on this social channel,
Yeah.
this social channel. But I want to pull that back. Not only does it create a sense of overwhelm, it's creating a sense of confusion because we're
Hmm.
not getting the message lined up with who's on the receiving end of that channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
But email is direct, right? If we're going there, we know who's on the other end and we can either connect or not. Talk to us about the importance and relevance of email in 2026.
Well, you think about, what you said there, right? Is that it's easy to like something on a social channel, right? Connect with it, and it goes by your feed, and you're not really, you might engage, you might not. It's fleeting. When you think about what happens in the interaction between somebody saying, "Oh," or hearing about your business, whether that's face to face, whether it's online, wherever it is, going to your website or being face to face with you and saying, "Hey, I want to stay connected with you. I'm going to give you my email address," that allows you into a safe space. It's like inviting somebody into your home in many ways, right? And so I think that's the real power of what we want to call it, right? It's an opt-in marketing channel, right? So it's somebody raising their hand to say, "Yes, I want to stay connected to you." And you have the ability to talk one-on-one with people and build those relationships, and think about the different people that you have in your list and actually see some things going on and make those connections in a way that are where you think of like everything that is happening on social media, for example, is a public space, right? It's public, people watching, and those are all good things. But then you get in the inbox, and it's a private space, so it's actually a conversation between you and a potential customer, a vendor, whoever it is that's important for your business, right? And it's that opportunity to really just have a one-on-one conversation that can lead to something down the line if you're showing up consistently. I think there's an interesting thing there too. I mean, I think we over index on email marketing in some ways being a conversion channel, meaning I'm going to tell you about a sale. I'm going to tell you about a promotion. I'm going to do all of this. And I think it should be part that. And then the other part, relationship building. So sharing information, sharing things that are relevant to the people that you're talking to, that help them do something, that share your expertise, that share your insight on something, that give them something to think about, to give them a sense of, oh, who are these people that I could potentially be doing business with? And I think when you combine those two, you start to get in this, because then it's easy to just ignore again, right? If you just, because not everybody wants to buy something all of the time. It becomes one of those, like, the friend who only contacts you when they want to, want to ride to the airport or some help moving something, right? But you never hear from them any other time, right? It's like that type of thing. And so you really need to combine the two of those things to, keep people engaged when they're not ready to buy, and so they'll be thinking about you when they are, right, without fatiguing them, for lack of a better way to say that.
Well, your company name is Constant Contact, not contact you only when we have something to sell you,
Exactly,
right?
right.
That you would have called it that, right? And so, is that really the secret, what you just outlined, that we've got to get into the headspace that marketing through email is still relevant because it allows us to build a relationship privately. And it's not like every time that we do that contact that we have to sell something. Maybe that's what we're getting wrong.
I think that's a good way to say it and look at it, because I think that's it. I mean, it's the opportunity to just connect as people, that you make people aware of things, of course, but it doesn't have to be that um, hard sell all the time. I think what the other thing that's interesting about email, when you think about the opportunity of paying attention to what people are interested in. So let's say, for example, we talk about this idea of being timely and relevant, and it kind of leads us down this path of like automating things, right? And a lot of times when you think about automating things, people will bristle at it a little bit because they feel like that's impersonal. And my argument is always, actually, particularly in the email space, that allows you to be more personal, because personal is really all about timeliness and relevance. And what I mean by that is, so let's say I'm interested in a particular topic. Let's say I write about a couple of things and I send out an email about a specific thing. Like, you want to learn more about this? And somebody clicks on that. then I can have automation on the end of that to send them more information about that particular thing at the time that that person decided to do something about it. It's kind of like when somebody even just first joins your email list, right? You send that welcome email because it's a moment in time where somebody's highly engaged with your business because they're saying, hey, yeah, I want to get on this list. I want this thing now, right? And so like, I used to joke, we have a customer that we would work with, and he would say, my sometimes monthly email list, and I'd be like, okay, well, cool, but if somebody joins today and you just sent your newsletter yesterday, it could be 3 months before they hear from you again, and by then they're like, forget it, right?
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, why am I getting this? And so you just have opportunities to really do those things and send messages and get the right information to the right people in that channel in some ways that you can't necessarily do on social media unless you're paying to do that, right? And so I think that's where the opportunity really comes in, is thinking about it. And I think that the nice thing about email too is that it kind of builds in stages, right? You can start just sending a newsletter to everybody, whatever you can do that is realistic for your business. People often get too hung up on, how often should I send and when should I send? And like, do something consistent, but pick something that you can commit to and do is more important than saying I have to be there every week or I have to be there, and every business is different too. And what that frequency looks like changes, but it's doing that and really leaning into those types of things that allow you to, again, get to that next phase of the relationship, and stay connected to those people that are important to your business.
And we're going to get into the report with all of the numbers because, like I said, it is such a meaty report and it was so welcome. It took time to upload, and I don't have a slow computer, right? So, with all the tools that are out there that make it so easy to block, report spam, instant unsubscribe,
Mm-hmm.
and with all of the SMS text marketing vendors saying, hey, we have 20 times higher conversion rates, go with SMS. Email is irrelevant now. You guys have the numbers. Is there the proper cadence? How many times is it okay to hit your average customer's inbox? What should you be doing? What are you seeing? How are you staying relevant? Like, is there still some of the data that shows, yeah, email still works?
Yeah, I mean, we see the numbers that things still work interest in terms of like, open rates, click-through rates, those types of things. But I want to preface it like this, because I feel like those numbers are only kind of good to give you generalities, right? I like people to understand, like when people ask that question, how often should I send, for example, my answer is always it depends. And I know and that's like the definitive answer, right? But it's definitive because it depends on your business, your audience, and ultimately what you want to try to do is match the need for the information that you're about to send. And so what I mean by that is that, you mentioned you started your podcast in 2020, so pandemic times. We had a chamber, New York chamber customer who at that period in time was sending multiple emails every day.
Mm.
Now you might think, I would never do that for my business. Yeah, you're right. You probably wouldn't. But they were matching the need because they were a very local community that was connected to this chamber, and they had information for the local community that they weren't getting anyplace else. And so the need for the information was there. Do they do that still now? No. Right. But at that particular time, it matched the need for the information. And so I think you want to do something consistent. And so if that's, once a week, like for example, I send a newsletter every other week, right? If it's once a month, if that's what works for you to be consistent, to be showing up, great. But know that can change based on the need. For example, let's say you set up an automation that is like a course on something, right? I'm making some things up here, right? But like somebody says, yeah, I want to get that course. Well, they're hungry for that information at that point. And so you might say, okay, I'm going to send up a series that sends an email every day. Or, and so like they're getting the 5 emails in the series that you created or something like that. And so it's really about asking that question, right? What is the information? What is the timeliness of that? And how important it is to get to the people that need it at that particular time. And so matching the need with the audience, That's where you get to the what is the right frequency for your business.
Does consistency beat volume and frequency every time?
When I talk to small business owners in various fields,
Mhm.
what I typically hear is I've been sending an email every Wednesday for the last X amount of time. I can think of a real estate customer in particular who closes 100 deals a year and does zero prospecting because he's been sending a weekly email about what's going on in the market for, I don't know, 12, 17 years now. And he does it because he's showing up in people's inboxes and those people are interested in buying and selling. And so cut down to the fundamental thing, I would say, yeah, be consistent. I mean, think about consistency just as a term in general, right? Like if you want to lose weight, you've got to work out and eat right consistently. It's not when I feel like it, right? And I think
I
it's the same.
wish.
Yeah, right. Me too. So it is. There's something to that. If you want to get better at something, it's about showing up every day and practicing that thing. You want to learn how to play piano, right? And I think it's the same with marketing. I think I don't know why we would expect it to be different. It's showing up consistently, and then even just think about that, what that does for the relationship and the trust that you build over time. I can trust that if I can trust that you're showing up in my inbox when you say you are consistently, well, that means something, right? In terms of what that trust and that what that relationship can be with the people that you're connecting with.
And on the topic of consistency, I think it goes beyond cadence.
Mm.
It goes to message clarity. That if
Mm-hmm.
I show up and I'm saying, right, it doesn't matter if I show up every Wednesday, but if on one Wednesday I say, I'm a duck, I provide duck services, right? And then next Wednesday, I'm a mouse, I provide mouse services, right? There's no consistency there in my message. There's a lack of clarity. It's going to drive indecision and it's going to create a chasm between me and the
Mm.
people who are on the receiving end who are saying, yeah, the decision integrity here, it's not there. You're telling me you're a duck one week and you're telling me you're a mouse next week. And what if I'm shopping for a cow? I don't want either of you, right? And you create confusion. So consistency in the message, I think, has become more important than ever, given AI and everything else. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, well, I think it's just really important to be clear on what it is that what is the problem that you solve and what do you offer to people. And I think the more you can make that clear, and I think it's also, I think a lot of people get hung up on this idea that, yeah, but I do more than one thing. And yes, you may do more than one thing, but you have to think of it through the lens of, let's say you're inviting somebody into your home. You don't rip off the roof and show them all the rooms at once, right? You bring them in through the front door and then you take them around the tour. And so oftentimes what you need to do is think about your business as, how do I get people to the front door? And then what do I need to then get them inside? And then think about what they need after that, right? So like you can start in one place and they're all related, but you don't want to confuse people with so many messages that it gets, that they just don't know what to think of you as, or what to think of you for. And so, and oftentimes you need to think, when I talk to small business owners that still today, going back to even when I started into this over, 20 years ago, the number one way small businesses always will say they get businesses from word of mouth referrals. And so that means you want people to be able to hear or know how to talk about your business as well. When somebody that they know says, hey, do you know anybody that does such and such? Oh yeah. Yeah. You got to go talk to, you got to go talk to Dave, right? Or you got to, and so the simplicity of the message and making that very clear at what problem it solves and for who is really important.
Right. You look at the success of accountants. It's so easy. They go to a networking party. Hey, what do you
Yeah.
do? Oh, I'm a CPA. Got it. You do taxes, right? Instant. And then
Yeah.
the rest of us that are generalists, we do this, we do that, we make cow noises, we make moose noises, right? All the rest of this stuff, duck noises, we quack. People don't get it. And if they can't translate our message in a way that makes sense, they're not going to be able to recreate it, and they're never going to give us the referral because they're not exactly entirely sure what we do.
What we do. I have been thinking about getting into the animal noise business though. So
I hear it's booming.
I've been hearing this a lot. I'm getting a line on the street. I don't know.
um, what do you hear? I know we're going to get into the report after
Sure.
this. Last question before we dive into some of the data.
Yeah, yeah.
At a high level, forget about the reports, the
Mhm.
marketing speak, the polish, the graphs, the this, the that. What are small businesses telling you today that our small business audience and entrepreneurs need to hear right now?
Yeah. I think the big thing is in all my conversations, one of the major themes that comes out is about building strong community relationships within your local community. And I think with all of the online digital stuff, it's really easy to get into I need to do all this stuff online. And particularly when you're first starting, I think it's more important to think about how do I get out and talk to people face to face, build relationships, and then use online to stay connected with them versus trying to do it the other way around. Because it's those face to face relationships and those types of things that are going to, oh, I know. Yeah, I know you. We've talked before, right? It cements things in a different way. And hosting events, engaging in community things, taking advantage of the resources that are in your local community too.
Mhm.
There are, business meetups. There are, I remember the very first episode, actually going back to the Small Biz Stories podcast. That podcast opened with a quote from a business owner who said, "Sometimes being a small business owner, you feel so alone because nobody knows what you're going through. Nobody knows, right?" And so it was like, whoa, that was like an eye opener. It's like, take advantage of the resources that are available to you. Don't feel like you have to do it all alone. And so that's one of the big things I would say is start there. Think about, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Where can I go to start talking to people and start building real relationships?
Agreed. I've heard that a lot from the different small business owners that I have mentored, that I've helped with their programs and to get their message clearly out to the universe. People aren't prepared for how lonely it is. They're like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it would be all these hours. My
Yeah.
relationship blew up, this, that, the whole thing, right? People really don't understand what's happened there. And so I think I'm glad that you said that because it is a really big thing. All right, let's get into your meaty report. You've got this wonderful 2025, report and kind of the state of the industry where small businesses are. A couple of things that really stood out to me. Huge drop. Almost 30% of small business owners felt like, yeah, I'm confident in my marketing effectiveness. Now we're hanging sub 20% at 18%. What
Hmm.
do you think's driving that drop in confidence?
I think it has to do with just the overwhelm in many instances where, we talked about social before, where again, social is very good at giving you metrics that don't necessarily equate to I'm doing more business, I'm doing more activity. And I think there's the okay, I should be doing all of these things. You're hearing all of this different stuff. It's that overwhelm again. And so you feel like, okay, I have to be doing all of these things, but you're not starting with, I always say to people, if anybody comes up to you and says, you need to do this without saying, what are you trying to do first? Just run away, ignore everything that they say. Right? Because I think we all have access to the same tools. It's how we use them that's going to change based on what it is that we're trying to do. And I think being very clear on what it is that you're trying to do with your business at that particular moment, because it's going to change, right? But you're going to have a priority. So I'm trying to do this. Here's how I'm going to use the tools to help me reach that goal. Then you can actually start to see things and track things back in a way that it feels like I need to post, I need to do this, right? Where I need to post isn't a reason to do it. I need to post because I'm trying to, and that helps you decide what it is that you're going to post. Who are you going to post it to, right? Like all of those things change when you have some strategy and a goal behind it. And I think oftentimes we just jump into the thing without that for real. And so it just feels like we're doing a lot of stuff, but we don't really know what we're doing.
It is all about that intentionality. I know
Yeah.
I, you know, like I eat your own dog food, right? As the business owner, I was like, ah, I'm here, I'm there. And
Yeah.
until I started really bringing intentionality into everything, I, I was kind of shooting wide and not a clear signal.
Yeah.
And you talked about it earlier in our podcast. Just because you're posting and you're busy doesn't mean you're making forward progress. And I
Yeah.
think people have lost that, that important meaning.
Yeah.
It's
It's
creating overwhelm.
it's difficult. I mean, there's so many things vying for our attention, and it again, that the tools and the devices that we have are very good at making you feel like you're missing out on something.
Exactly. And so one of the things I was looking at that a lot of small businesses are pulling their hair out, right? Hair on fire. Ah, something's not working. I don't know what's not working. Is it tracking? Is it getting people to my front door you talked about? Is it a message clarity problem? People don't
Mm.
understand what I'm saying because on page 5 of your report, you've got 23% say they don't know what's working. And yet almost 40% are increasing their budgets, but confidence is still falling. Like what's going on there?
I think it's I think it's what we've been talking about here. Really, it's just that not being clear on what it is that you're trying to do, and so you're just using the tool, but you're not actually saying I'm using the tool with purpose. And I think that's the big difference. There's a difference between, I'll go back to the posting analogy, right? There's a difference between posting and a difference between posting with purpose, and I think it's that, because when you have the purpose behind it, you know what it is that you're clear about what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you're trying to do. Another thing I would say is that I also feel like there's what we've seen when people don't spend enough time actually talking to the people that they're trying to serve. And so it makes sense to, like, we almost get in our own way, particularly if we're not the audience, right? And sometimes that's difficult to do, and sometimes it makes sense, but depending on your product or service. But we don't spend enough time actually listening to what we're hearing from our potential customers so that we can echo that back and create something that's meaningful to them.
Which really cues up my next question beautifully. We didn't even plan this audience, but like, so this is what's amazing, right? So 48%, according to your study, are using AI to craft their messages. Now,
Yeah.
we talked about at the beginning of the show that it's that people connection. And so if we're using bots to try to connect with people and sound human, right? Half of us, 48%, yet your data show 31% are concerned about accuracy, 26% are concerned about brand mismatch. Should we even really be using AI in our emails, or are we creating and amplifying the confusion?
So I think AI, if used right, with great with great power comes great responsibility, right? In many ways, right?
Indeed,
So
indeed,
so
right?
it's AI, I think, is very valuable in the sense of, like, so when we think about constant contact for customers, for example, majority of our customers are not marketers by trade. They're business owners who know they need to market. And so when you think about what that means, is sometimes the problem is I don't know how to say what I need to say to somebody because I don't know how to write it in a way, right? So I think that's just one piece of AI, right, in terms of content creation. And so when you think about someone saying, I need to get an email out to tell people about something, AI can really be helpful in that sense because it helps them get away from the blank page. I think the other piece that we're starting to see people now, I think we just did an even newer report that just came out more recently talking about how they're using that to actually help them think through data, identify trends, identify things that allow them to make smarter decisions, right? Which is, I think, a little different from just the content creation piece of it. I actually think that's the more exciting part of things, when you can start to use, so I look at constant contact, for example, like, we see a world where we get to a place where you can go into your account and we can start to see what's happening with the people that you're sending messages to, the other things that they're doing, to make recommendations to you. So we can be like your marketing department to say, like, hey, you should think about sending this type of message to this person because they've responded to something like that in the past, or they've done something like that, right? And so I think I hear what you're saying. Like, I think there's a, like, as from a creative person, I also think there's like the element of, all right, well, I enjoy doing the creative piece of it because that's what I enjoy to do. But as we're talking about, there are people that don't know how to do the creative piece of it and don't enjoy that part, but they love to do the thing that they do that they're the expert in. And so this is where I think AI can really come in to be the support piece to help those people get to where it is that they need to go. Right. So it's a very big conversation, I think, in terms of like when it's helpful and when it's not. And to be fair, I think if people are using AI without any eye on it, and I think that, you've probably heard the phrase, right? The people in the loop or human in the loop, right? You do need that because that's where the nuance comes in. That's where even the expertise is allowed to be seen, because you've got it somewhat right, but not exactly right. So it's an interesting question because there's lots to, I think, unpack through it.
And along those lines, if you were to define what is better marketing, here we're in 2026, everything's changed, everything's AI, all of the rest of this stuff. Does better marketing mean this consistency? Does it mean a personal message that it's all really tailored? Is it strategic restraint where we're trying to build the relationship, not sell, right?
Yeah.
Contact only when I've got something. Define better marketing for us, Dave. What does that look like? What does it
I
sound
would
like?
say, yeah, I would say better marketing is the marketing that spurs people to action. So the people that are important to your business, it gets them to do something. That's better marketing in my eyes, because ultimately we're doing the things that we're doing the activities in order to make a connection, find our people, and then get them to do something, whether that be reply to us, visit the website, even just share something. All of those things, if you can do marketing that gets people to talk about it or to do something about it, that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, if you're just doing stuff and nobody's doing anything, well, you're not getting anywhere, right? And so I think it's that. I think it's getting to the place where you're doing things that you understand your audience, that allows you to connect with them in ways that actually gets them to want to do something, whatever that may be.
Hence the reason of having a CTA, button, the call to action at the end,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I
But
read the
even
damn email. What am I
even
supposed to do with it?
well, you think about it though, like sometimes it's okay to just send an email to build a relationship, right?
Mhm.
To do just I can't tell you how many times I'll get a message from somebody that's just hey, checking in, just hope things are well with you. Now, depending on the nature of the relationship, that's actually very meaningful. He didn't have to
Yes.
say like, hey, reply and let me know what you're thinking about.
Right, right,
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think, again, I think it's going back to uh, those relationships. At the end of the day, it's about the relationships that you have with your customers, your vendors, the people within your local community. That's what it's going to be. AI is going to help us think about things differently, take some of the mental load off, allow us to kind of get back to the things that we want to do. But ultimately, the core of it is those connections and the relationships that we have with people at the end of the day.
Your report, last question here, ends with they need guidance, air quotes for the people that don't have the benefit of the visuals. They need guidance, support, and tools built for the way they work. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's your conclusion of your report. That said, Dave, what should small businesses start doing now? One capability, one change, one thing differently here in 2026 so that they can start positioning themselves for greater success at the end of the year and into the new year. What
Yeah.
should they do? What should they build?
I'm going to mention three things because this is something that's come out of just a most recent report where we're hearing and we're seeing what people are doing. And I think one, we've talked about some of this here today. The challenge is really when you think about what's happening out there, the hardest part, it's really getting seen and then doing something with that once you get seen, right? And so it's not about just kind of doing all of the busy work. And so I think one, try to focus on focusing, right? Like stop trying to be everywhere at the start, right? Get good at one social channel, as I mentioned, move people to email, right? So show up with that intention, start conversations, build the relationships. That's where the time spent is actually going to really start to pay off. I think as we've been talking about AI, I think it's helpful to folks that, need it to allow them to move. I was going to say faster, but I think I'm going to stop at move, that allow you to move. Because I think as a business owner, you probably know this too. You just got to do the thing. You got to get going and then you'll learn it. But if you don't get going, you don't get anywhere. And so I think AI can help us in so many ways just move, right? And it can save you time on things to get to from point A to point B. And so you can use it to spot trends. You can use it to draft things faster, right? You can just turn ideas into things that allow you to move and make progress on them. And so, and again, that human in the loop, it's still you that decide. And then I think the third thing is really take advantage of automating like the basic things, right? So if your marketing, when you think about it, is only working when you're working, that's a problem, right? It's just like your business. If like you're so in your business that you can't be getting new business, it's the same thing. And I think it's the same for your marketing. And so set up the welcome series, right? Schedule some posts, create the follow-ups, do all of those things. You can, once you get that built, you can kind of let it start to run and do some of those things for you. So it's focus your channels, use the AI wisely, and automate what you repeat on a regular basis.
As someone who grew up in Canada playing hockey and idolizing then Wayne Gretzky, right, as the GOAT for his sport, not his politics, but we won't go there, that it was all about you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't that Michael Scott that did that? I don't know if you get that reference.
Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky, let's stick our quotes where they are. Right. So, Dave, as we're wrapping up our show, where can people learn more about Constant Contact, about these new reports, or get in touch with you as the Director of Small Business Success?
Yeah, of course. So, anything Constant Contact related, come find us at constantcontact.com. We're on all the socials as well. But Constant Contact has a tons of resources for small business owners, including a community and also, free webinars and all of this free education around marketing in general. So if you want to find any information there, please do. You can find me. The easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. Happy to take a connection request there. So Dave Charest, find me on LinkedIn. That's where I focus my energy on social media, is sharing stuff on LinkedIn.
I hope we're connected yet. I haven't looked before the show, but I'll be looking after when I tag you when this
yes,
episode
please.
goes live. But, we'll be in there. All right. Last question, signature question of the show. Small business stories. That question is, if we got to peek into your closet and there was some footwear in there,
footwear,
or maybe clothing or other accessory, but footwear is the focus, that personified who you are, Dave Charest, as the brand, the personality. What are we looking at? Describe it to us and why that is so you.
Okay. So when I speak, I like to wear sneakers. And I'm actually having a pair I really like right now. And they're like these kind of green suede type things. But when I'm on a stage, I love to I have this yellow pair of Nike sneakers. I can't even remember what the name, they were like a special run of things that add a little pop when you're on stage. So I usually wear a blazer and that type of thing. But I like that. I'm a sneaker guy more than anything else.
See, there we go. It's like, when I ask this question, their guard comes down. And more times than not, there's nothing fancy about it. It's utility. It's, function over form. I guess it gets it done and it gives me something, right? Because we're all entrepreneurs. We're trying to get stuff going. We're hustling. We're this, we're that. We don't have time, right, for the stilettos and that anymore. Gone.
I love so funny. My wife and I, we started doing like food service type thing. And the biggest thing that I love about it is there's no more of what do you want to do for dinner? What do you want to do? I'm like, I don't have to spend any mental energy on thinking about what we're going to do for food because it's there and we just have to pick one. And it's like, this is the best thing ever.
We can all understand why Steve Jobs, right, just said, my head is blowing up. I'm just going to get 10 black cashmere turtlenecks, 10 pairs of jeans, 10 pairs of socks and just call it done.
Be done with it.
One less decision, right? I love it. Anyway, with that, Dave Charest, Director of Small Business Stories from Director, pardon me, of Small Business Success. There I go. From Constant Contact. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Too many parallels there.
It's so funny, right?
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?